Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Bleeding Metal podcast. I'm your host, Kiki, and I am, as always, joined by my co host.
Hello, I am Pia.
And today we have a special guest. This is a new season of the podcast, as we have decided. This is the second episode of the new season after we took a little break, and we are bringing you more guests, more interviews, more really cool conversations. And today we have here, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Simon McMurdo, he, him, and I'm a writer from Nottingham in the United Kingdom. And I'm so excited to be on the podcast because I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. We are also excited to have you here and to be talking about your book because you wrote a book.
I did. I wrote a book about my favorite band. I'm sure all of you know them, Nightwish. So I'm really excited to be talking about Nightwish. And the book, which came out earlier this year, has just been released also in the USA. So this is really good timing. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys.
Hell yeah. And the title is Nightwish, every album, every song on track.
Yes, exactly. So it's a big, big task. So every single song they ever performed or released, we talk about it.
Also, the live covers like Symphony of Destruction, stuff like that.
Yes, including the live covers, absolutely, Pia. So also even the ones that they just did like one time, like they covered a song by Twisted Sister once in Germany. So we even talk about that.
How did you find the information about these songs?
Well, one of the things I love to say is actually when I was a teenager and I discovered metal music, I fell in love with Nightwish, and I wasted so many hours in my bedroom reading everything about them, reading every newspaper, every article in a magazine. And now, 15 years later, I feel like finally I can use the information that I learned. So it's kind of always been up there in my head. But you're absolutely right, Pierre. There's so many different songs that even I didn't know about. So researching was a big part of this. I think back then, if you'd asked me, do you know everything about Nightwish? I would say yes. And then now I think, oh, I really didn't.
Do you now? Do you think about Nightwish?
I hope so. Maybe now.
Did you also write about the Kiki and Pia, the song that they wrote for their ice hockey team?
Yes, absolutely. So I love that. So actually, they've got a few links with like sports teams. One of my favorites is a Finnish gymnast performed a really beautiful routine to Planet Hell at the gymnast. I'm not sure what the gymnastic thing. It's in the book, but at a big competition, and it was really great to see because it's such like an aggressive, almost violent song, and she just looks so graceful as well. So, and also the Australian synchronized swimming team did a performance for Last Ride of the Day. And it's so epic. Like I feel like Nightwish music is great for like the Olympics.
Yes, it is a great soundtrack to any sort of sport. I just got into ice skating, and I always imagine that being also like a really cool music to accompany.
Oh, Kiki, that would be perfect. They have so many like wintry songs that I'll make you a playlist. You can play it when you're skating.
Well, hell yeah, I won't say no to that. So what was the motivation or the trigger to start the book? So I'm guessing, or rather, let's start way before that. How did you discover Nightwish and metal for that matter?
Right. So I was very lucky, I think, when I look back on how I discovered metal. I was quite young. I was maybe 13, 14, and Evanescence had a really big song here in the UK, maybe also with you guys, Bring Me to Life. It was number one in the charts. And I was like, what is this dark, gothic, almost, symphonic alternative music? I just fell in love with it. But at this time, of course, I didn't really have the internet. I didn't have a computer or anything like that. So I just bought the Fallen CD by Evanescence. And this is where the luck comes in. My next door neighbor is the most knowledgeable metalhead I've ever met in my life. And he was like, you know, in his like late 30s, and he came over to me, this 13-year-old, and he was like, do you like Evanescence? Well, you're gonna love this. And he gave me Wishmaster by Nightwish. And
Wow.
I also love to tell this story because, guys, I did not like it. I was like, this is so scary. What is this scary music? I don't like this. Kind of funny looking back. But it always kind of stuck in my mind, you know, the name Nightwish. And when they released Nemo a few years later, I kind of gave them a second shot. And I think, you know, during that era, their music was a little bit more accessible. Like Nemo is such a beautiful song. Like even my mum that doesn't like metal music loves that song. And it kind of enabled me to delve deeper into metal. And that was kind of where the journey began. So when I was 15, I was head over heels with symphonic, doom, gothic metal. So yeah, I mean, it's funny that I used to think Nightwish was scary when I look at some of the things I would listen to years later. But it was such a special band. I always think the music you discover when you're a teenager is so powerful, you know, when you're discovering yourself and what you like. And it's always stuck with me. And as I said earlier, Pia, to your question, that was when I was always in my room, just absorbing every bit of information that I could find about the bands that I loved. And it really has stuck with me to this day, and kind of now maybe paying the bills a little bit.
I can relate to what you just said. For my other podcast, we just did a Linkin Park discography check, and I remember that when I listened to them for the first time, I really didn't like the screams or the screamish vocals. And now I listen to deathcore. So
Exactly. Sometimes you need a bit of time, right, to get used to it.
Yeah, it can be an acquired taste for sure. But also, if you didn't, I mean, and that goes for me, for everybody probably. If we're not exposed to heavy music from earlier on in our lives, those formative years can be so impactful when all of a sudden we come in contact with this music and maybe identify with the sound or the lyrics and just the, I don't know, there's the concept of teen angst, right? And that's where this music draws so much from, and that is absolutely a feeling every teenager can relate to. And so yeah, that's the gateway to connect with heavier music and to start delving a little deeper into the genres.
Absolutely. That's a very good way of putting it. I think you're right. I think a lot of that angst really does come out. And that's probably why so many people have their, I hate the phrase, but, you know, their goth phase, where just for a few years they listen to that music. I don't think it ever leaves you. It never left me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you were talking about your early years, and it was not a phase, and now here we are.
No, we're still here. We're still rocking.
Yes. When was the first time you saw Nightwish live?
Oh, so this is quite not an embarrassing one, but maybe a surprising one, is that I only actually saw Nightwish live for the first time, maybe like 5 years ago. It was on the Decades tour, which actually was a really nice tour to see them on because it was kind of spanning their whole career to date. A lot of my friends are not really into the same music as me, and I used to be quite nervous to like travel to concerts on my own. That is not the case anymore. I go everywhere on my own now. So yeah, a lot of opportunities passed me by. The one that really broke my heart was when I was 15. They performed in my town. This was when they were a lot smaller. It was the Wishmaster tour, and I couldn't go because I was not old enough. So that first opportunity, it still breaks my heart. My metalhead neighbor, he went and he took lots of pictures, and even my sister saw them before me because she was older. So that kind of broke my heart. But it was kind of nice as well to wait so long to see them, because it was such a special experience to see them on the Decades tour. And then I saw them again on the Human Nature tour. But I do kind of wish I'd seen them in those more intimate settings, you know, when they're coming through. I think there's a real nice vibe in that as well. But it's also great to see their big stage show also.
Have you seen them live with Taya and Annette then?
No, only with Floor. So yeah, I have seen Tarja solo a couple of times, so that's been great. And of course, she does do a lot of Nightwish songs in the set, which is, it feels like I've been waiting for this for so long. But yes, I would love to see them with Tarja. I mean, is it ever going to happen? I think it might. Maybe one day. That's my hot take.
Wow. You're starting strong.
We're all hoping for that, I guess.
I think so.
Why did you choose to write kind of song by song book? Because there is another book that's called Once Upon a Nightwish, the official biography that ends in 2006 when Taya still was the lead singer or was just kicked out of the band. So it would be also time for another biography, but you chose to focus on the songs. Why?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, Pia. I think after that, the band did for Endless Forms Most Beautiful, they did a book almost just for that era called We Were Here, which was also great. But for me, what I find really interesting, I loved Once Upon a Nightwish because I love knowing the history of the band. But for me, it really is about the music and it's about the songs and rediscovering those songs and seeing them in a different light. I really love that. So that's the reason I was kind of drawn to the songs. And the reason for doing every single song is that I think that when you talk about Nightwish, everyone likes to talk about Nemo, Ghost Love Score, Storytime, Amaranth, but there are so many songs that we never discuss, like Two for Tragedy or Bear Grace Misery, songs that are kind of forgotten in their huge discography. And it's really nice to be able to sit down, and they're my favorite songs actually to research and look into. But they can also be the most challenging because Thomas has said so many things about songs like Bye Bye Beautiful and The Poet and the Pendulum. He has said, I think, about 5 words about Two for Tragedy. So it can be quite hard and a lot of interpretation comes into it. But it's also kind of funny to find when he slates the songs as well. So the book it's not afraid to talk about some of the negatives as well. So like Thomas is quite critical, I think, of himself. Like there's a song called Away from Over the Hills and Far Away. He hates that song. And he will tell you every opportunity. He's like, oh, it is. Yeah, I won't repeat his words, but he's quite honest about that. And I really like that, actually, because I think in this day and age, everyone is so kind of media trained and controlled that they don't always say what they think. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree, but every time a band releases an album, it's their best album yet. And it's perfect from start to finish.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice and refreshing to see them say, oh, that was really bad. Why did I do that?
There is another song that he really hates from the debut album. It starts with the sentence, "The scent of a woman is not mine."
Like Fantasia.
Yes.
Yes, he said,
a
a lot of funny
back.
things. Yes, the immaturity of that song, I think, is quite sweet. And Elven Path, the very first song on the very first Nightwish album, he said he doesn't know how Floor can sing that song with a straight face. But I think it's very sweet, I think it's very immature, but it's very sweet as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way, or rather the factor time is the only thing that would make a musician say those types of things, right? We grow out of certain topics, we grow out of certain phases, not necessarily the goth phase, but we grow out of specific feelings and we don't identify with those anymore. And so maybe, sure, we can say, okay, what we did before might have been celebrated, but it's not my best work. It was good for then, but not anymore. And of course, when people are, or when musicians are releasing an album, like you were saying, Simon, they are on the selling side.
Yes.
And they have to, it's always heavier also, like metal bands.
Yes.
This is always the heaviest album ever in their discography. And sure, I mean, the best work yet, I think, is Justified, because musicians also evolve and get better. And even if they change course and fans might get pissed, well, yeah, that is part of their evolution and of their changing their music tastes, of experimenting with new sounds and all of that. But sure, they have to be very convinced about what they're putting out, because otherwise they wouldn't, right?
That is a very good point, right?
Only in retrospective you can actually say, well, I don't like that anymore.
And also society changed, because on the Wishmaster album, the opener is "She Is My Sin," and Thomas once said that he changed the lyrics because otherwise Taya would have sung "She Is My Sin" in the chorus. And today, I guess nobody would really care, but back then, it was kind of a thing to them that they didn't want to present her as a lesbian.
They didn't want to be gay. What?
No gay, right? Why?
Terrible.
That's a really good observation, actually, Per. I've not thought about that. But yeah, a lot of things
Yeah.
throughout the history, and in retrospect, you see the way that the culture that they're a part of kind of takes them in certain directions. Yeah,
Right.
it's really interesting to revisit.
Sure. So, what was your approach to each and every song? Did you analyze them musically or only lyrically? Did you just put them in context of how the band presented themselves at the time of the release? What was your process with every song?
It's a really good question, actually, and it's the first time I've been asked that, Kiki, and it's kind of good for me because I always like to say to people, I'm not a musician. I cannot play a single instrument. So a lot of that kind of informs how I approach the music. So a lot of time it is from the receiver, from a listener. So a lot of it is about the quotes that the band have said. Of course, we can dig into the emotion of the music quite easily. So you know how it takes you on a journey. I mean, I don't think you need
Yeah.
to be technically musically trained to feel that. So a lot of it is more focused on the message of the song and how it feeds into maybe the concepts of the time, quotes from the band, whether it was performed live, and also how it feeds into the Nightwish history. For example, a song like Rest Calm, the first time it was ever performed was at Annette's last show, and it was never performed again. And it almost has this kind of, bittersweet feeling to it when you discover these things. But also, if someone out there would like to do one about the actual music, you know, the in-depth, why are we playing this note at this time? I would love to read that.
Can you divide the discography into certain parts where they, I don't know, focus on a specific topic or something like that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So at the start, it's kind of very fantastical. I use immature, but not in an insulting way, just in the fact that I think they were quite, you know, a little bit more free, naive, and I think that that's really sweet. So you see that a lot in the themes. Not to say there isn't darkness there, there absolutely is, especially on Oceanborn. But then we start to evolve into a really dark era for the band. You know, Century Child was particularly difficult, and even though Once was a real peak, that was followed by Dark Passion Play with the Tarja drama. And it's interesting, actually, Pia, because it seems to be the band members that are the cause of a lot of this darkness. So on Century Child, Thomas really struggled with Sami and having to fire Sami, the bassist. And then, of course, the Tarja situation, which we all know a lot about during Dark Passion Play. I feel like this era that they're in now, I'm never sure what to call it, because I used to call it like the science era, which sounds a little bit basic, but it really is a fascination in evolution and in our place in the earth. And of course, Richard Dawkins being involved and the tribute to nature on their Human Nature album. It's a really wonderful time because it feels as well like they've reached some kind of peace. Like there's less drama in the music, but that doesn't mean it's not dramatic. It's less personal drama. It's more about appreciating the grandeur of the world that we live in and that majesty. And I absolutely love that. But going back to something you said earlier, Kiki, like some fans do struggle with that change. And I understand that because the band now are very progressive. Like some of their songs, like Procession, doesn't really have a chorus on their last album. And if you compare that to Wishmaster and to some degree Oceanborn, which were like peak power metal, of course it's a different audiences that we're appealing to. And I always feel a little bit nervous sometimes when the band go in a different direction because I love them so much and I think, am I going to be invited along on this journey? And thankfully so far I've kind of got it and I've moved along with them. But who knows, maybe sometime they'll do something and I will be like, no, not for me. I'm sorry. Not the dubstep Nightwish album, not for me.
Did your own music taste also, or was your music taste influenced by also what Nightwish did? Because when they released the Once album, they put a lot of orchestra in, even more in the upcoming albums, and then they got a bit more progressive, I'd say.
I think to some degree, I guess I've not been asked that before, Pierre, so I'm kind of thinking about it. I guess my music taste has always been really broad to the point that I absolutely love cheesy pop music just as much as I love Nightwish. So when they do like a really cheesy song, like they did a cover of Where Were You Last Night by
Yes.
Ankevager, and everyone's like, what on earth is this? And
I
I'm
love
just having the
that.
best time. But that makes sense because I guess if people are coming from that they only listen to metal and they only like metal, they might think it's a bit odd. But that really appeals to a different side of me. I would say I've never really been hugely into prog music, but I've followed along on the Nightwish journey, and I'm still very much a fan of the music that they're making today. So perhaps it could inspire some decisions that I make in the future.
That's really interesting. Your whole thought process going into this book and how you approach their music, and it feels, I mean, congratulations on all the work. Of course, it seems like a huge undertaking in terms of research, especially like to know on the spot which song has been performed where and how is just amazing. I think from a perspective of a fan, and we are, or we have been big Nightwish fans, Pia and I, we even did, and that's what I was looking up. We did our special episode about Nightwish, and we did the whole discography. Have you listened to it?
I don't think I have listened to it. Is it quite a recent episode?
No, it's been
a
ages. It
while.
was ages ago.
Was it under the old name?
19, yeah.
Oh,
It was still
okay.
a Metal and High Heels podcast
But then
episode.
I am going to listen to that straight away, because my question for you was going to be your experience with Nightwish, and because I think a
We
lot
can
of
talk
people
about
kind
that,
of pick
yeah.
up and put down, right, because of the changes. So how do you guys find Nightwish now? Are you still big fans?
No. Mostly because I absolutely don't like how Floor is singing. To me, it's just yelling or barking in my head. It's a special singing style. I think it's called belting, and I absolutely
Yes.
hate
Yeah.
that. And
Ah,
she's such a great singer. She can do everything. She
right.
can growl. She can do the operatic voice and everything like that. And everything she does sounds like barking in my head. And yeah, I was hoping so much that she brings back the Taya vibe also, because I
Right.
really love
Mhm.
Nightwish with Taya. I also think that Annette is a very good singer. I like her solo stuff a lot, but she wasn't really allowed to do so many things in Nightwish that she would have been able to do, and I think that's a pity. Yes, so I'm really stuck in the Taya era, and also I didn't like the orchestra. When they released Once, that was the perfect balance between the metal instruments and the orchestra, and then they just overdid this symphonic part for me, and that's actually when I kind of left the band. I, of course, paid attention to their releases and listened to the new stuff, but every time I do that, I notice, okay, that's not for me.
That is, yeah, absolutely. I've heard that a lot actually, Pierre, about Floor's vocal style. I guess, like myself, you're a fan of After Forever and the stuff that she did also with
Mhm.
Revamp. And when you know what she's capable of, if it doesn't kind of deliver that for you, it can feel a little bit like you're being teased almost, right? You know she can do more. So no, I've definitely heard that. And I love what you said about the orchestra, because Kiki, it's like you said earlier about every band's album is the heaviest. With Nightwish, for a time, it was the most orchestral, the most grandiose, the most symphonic.
Dramatic too.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Imaginarium, yeah.
Absolutely. How about you, Kiki? Are you still a fan?
Well, also not so much.
It's fine. I'm
Sad.
not going to convert you.
By the time we did that band special episode about Nightwish's whole history, I think by then my fandom was already dying down. It's actually funny that you told us your Nightwish story, your first contact with Nightwish, because it was kind of like that for me as well.
Oh,
I was,
wow.
yeah, my gateway to into heavy music was also new metal in the form of Linkin Park and Korn and Limp Bizkit, and then Evanescence was my big eureka moment, kind of, because I thought, wow, women can do that too. Women are allowed into heavy music, which nowadays, but that was 20 years ago. And I started a band, and the guitarist from my very first band when I was 16 gave me the DVD for the Wishmaster tour. And I absolutely loved it. And also a very similar experience. They played in my city in Quito in South America, and I couldn't go because I felt too young, and
Right.
and nobody would have gone with me. But and I would have seen them then with Tarja. So yeah, that is also very, very sad in retrospective. But yeah, then I became a big, big fan. They were my gateway into symphonic metal. Afterwards came Within Temptation and Epica, which is now still one of my favorite bands. And I got to see Nightwish with Annette actually at a festival in 2007. And that was pretty interesting because I absolutely did not like her voice. I did not like her voice. I did not like her way of singing. And it was, I don't know, there was something to how she sang the Nightwish songs that it just didn't appeal to me. And when Nightwish announced Floor was joining them, that was also a big change because I had already met her. I think it was, I think I had even
2012.
had a vocal lesson with her at her house before she joined Nightwish. Yeah, and we were interviewing her at Metal Female Voices Fest in Belgium, and she already knew she was joining, but she couldn't tell us. And it was incredible. So I will link in the description both our Nightwish band special and our interview with Flor Jansen. So for all of our Nightwish fans, listeners, this is a big treat for you, I hope. But I totally agree with Pia. I think earlier I would have said that was a hot take that I didn't want to believe. But the more I see the live performances, I do agree that maybe Flora is just not really allowed in the context of the band to explore everything that she can do vocally and that she also teaches. And I haven't listened to her solo stuff that she just put out this year as well, but I am thinking that might be a good outlet for her to explore, although I think it's way poppier, kind of
Yes.
like what
It's
Anneke van
very
Vleuten
pop.
has also done nowadays with her solo work, right? So it's not really an alternative, but she otherwise doesn't have an outlet. She doesn't have, that's why she quit Revamp, right? She had, in the beginning, she wanted to do both Nightwish and Revamp, and there was just no time in the world. So that is very sad. And the most recent albums have not really caught my attention. They haven't really stuck in my head. I have given them a listen, but the last thing I remember from Human Nature is that the video was cool. I remember
Noise. Was Noise?
Yes, that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, the video for Noise was really cool. The visuals were very impactful, were very strong, way more than the music. I can't even remember how the song goes, and that usually doesn't happen to me when I like a song. But it doesn't deny the fact that they changed metal and that they made music, and especially heavy music history, also with their participation in Eurovision back then, etc. So Nightwish is still a very important band also for me as a singer and as a metal fan. They have been a big part of my development, so I hold them very dear because of that. Yeah.
It's really interesting because for me, Nightwish also was the starting point into heavy music. Before that, I was listening to punk rock.
Oh,
And then,
wow. Quite a difference.
yes, the first song that I knew was Moondance. So the instrumental.
That's incredible. I don't know anyone that discovered Nightwish via Moondance. I love that.
Yes, and a friend of mine showed it to me, and I found that was really cool. And then he said, "Okay, then you should listen to Over the Hills and Far Away. That's a cover song, but you might be shocked by the vocal style."
Yes. Yeah, indeed. I guess we kind of take it for granted now. We're so familiar with it, but at the time, it's kind of odd. I think that's why I was a little bit more hostile towards them at the start because of Tarja's vocals, because it's not something that I heard that often. And you know, this soaring operatic, I was like, what on earth is this? But actually, that became part of the reason I love them so much. So yeah, sometimes it just takes time, I guess.
Yeah, for me it was quite easy because I was a big fan of musicals when I was a kid, and I also back then already had classical vocal training.
Oh, amazing. Oh,
So
nice.
that was also something that I could use for practicing.
Yeah. Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, that's incredible. Thank you both for sharing as well. I think sometimes I really hate when you're in a fan community and everyone is just positive about everything, because I think that that's not life, right? Sometimes we like things, sometimes we don't. And I always say whenever I'm speaking to people, like, I appreciate the honesty, you know?
Yes.
Some things connect and some things don't.
I would like to know what's your take on the songs that we might interpret as dedicated to members of the band that have parted ways with them.
Right. So shall we talk about Bye Bye Beautiful, Kiki?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So that one is, I always feel really bittersweet about that song because I actually think, like, musically, it's one of their most impactful songs, especially live. Like, it's such like a fist in the air kind of anthem, and it kind of sealed its own fate by making itself about Tarja, because it kind of put a sell-by date on itself, if you will. Like, they can't perform that song anymore because they don't feel that way, and the emotions have kind of passed, and
Do
it's
they
kind of
did they ever confirm that it is about Taya?
I can't remember if they said it in as many words. I think during that time, it was always a little bit fluffy. It was always like about the situation, about our time. But yes, I think I'm going to put I'm going to confidently state it is, but I think that they can never really avoid that. Also, Master Passion Greed, I'm pretty sure they, again, not in as many words, but said it was about Marcelo, Kabuli, Taria's husband, about the greed that they perceived and stuff like that. But again, what I said earlier about the honesty at the time, I mean, you mentioned, Pia, Once Upon a Nightwish. That is a really honest book that talks, like, it does not filter anything. It kind of explicitly says, you know, Marcelo did this, Taria did this. Like, there's no fluffiness to it. But yeah, I think it's kind of, it was necessary for them to kind of purge those emotions with the songs, but we kind of lose out now because they're so of the time that they'll probably never be performed. I think Thomas has said he'll never perform Bye Bye Beautiful again, and it's kind of a shame because it's such a great song, but I also understand because the emotions behind it's a little bit like, I don't know, maybe like bad mouthing your ex from 15 years ago. Like, you're just over it now. But one song that always really surprised me is The Poet and the Pendulum. When I see how deep the song is and how much it means to Thomas and how almost disturbing it is. You know, he's talking about his own suicide in that song. And I thought, there's no way he could possibly perform this live night after night. And yet he does. Even to this day, you know, with Floor on the Endless Forms Most Beautiful tour, they were still bringing out and put it in their set. And I guess maybe it is a little bit like almost like a therapy for him every night to kind of go through that and be reborn. But I don't know, for me, I would find that really difficult to have such raw words kind of, you know, repeated back to me night after night. But yeah, it's kind of nice though that it gets performed because it is a great song.
There is another very personal song, Dead Boy's Poem, from, I don't know if it was Oceanborn or Wishmaster, but from the early days. You as an expert, can you name more songs that have this very, very personal touch?
Well, first of all, while we talk about Dead Boy's Poem, if I can boast a little bit, my favorite thing about this book is that I was able to talk to Sam Hardwick, who is the young boy that speaks in Dead Boy's Poem and also in Bless the Child and Beauty of the Beast on Century Child. And it was so much fun to talk to him because he's not really involved in Nightwish at all. He was kind of just pulled in because they needed someone that could speak English quite fluently. And he said how strange it is because he lives quite a normal life, if for lack of a better term. And he says sometimes in Finland, he will turn on the TV and he will see them performing a song like Dead Boy's Poem and hear his voice, like, you know, in front of like Vaken or this huge crowd. And he's thinking, this is a very strange situation to be in.
Yes.
So that was a really great chat to have with him. But songs that are really personal, there are a lot. I mean, for me, I mentioned it earlier, but Two for Tragedy, Tuomo says so little about that song. And for me, I always kind of read that as it being really personal. I mean, the song is so raw and so stripped back, and the emotion in that song, it absolutely, it just gets me. But one thing I've noticed here as well is about Thomas's perception of death. Like during the earlier years, it was almost like this scary presence, like we're kind of used to. And then during Dark Passion Play on The Poet and the Pendulum, it became almost like this rebirth, and it became like a way of purging that negativity that he's going through. And then now on these later albums, death is almost like a celebration. So they have a song like Alpenglow, which celebrates the fact that we get to return to the earth. This celebrates the fact that we were ever here to start with. And a song like Harvest on the last album, which really is almost like, I think Thomas described it as smiling at the scythe when you're reaching your death and kind of reflecting back and thinking, how amazing that I've had this opportunity to live a life when so many others did not. And I really love that, because I think that I love to look for those themes across the discography, and it gives us a real insight into how much Thomas has grown as a person and how his perceptions have changed, as it has for all of us. So I've really enjoyed that. But for personal songs, yeah, I guess we've touched on some of the biggies. A lot of the time they do kind of strip them out. I think Thomas is quite good at using music as his therapy. And I think that that's a good thing and a bad thing, because sometimes it means we get songs that are kind of, he just has to have an outburst and then we never hear from them again, like Master Passion Greed. So if you fall in love with those songs, you're kind of unlucky, because you're probably never going to get them live. So
there's another song on the Once album. It starts with an R. What was the title? That was the song,
Romanticide.
yes,
Yes.
the song that made him able to write music again, because before that, I think he had a blockade,
Writer's block.
kind of.
Yes. Yeah, I think because Century Child was such like an emotional release for him, I think he probably was like, I have nothing more to give. So yeah, it's great. And I think it was Dead Gardens actually was the first song that was finished for that album. And he said, because I think he said something like Dead Gardens is maybe not the best song on Once, but it's kind of on there almost by merit of it being the thing that woke him up from his writer's block. So yeah, so that's gives a nice touch to that song, because I think a lot of people do kind of think of it as a bit of like a weak point in the album, but if it wasn't for Dead Gardens, we wouldn't have Ghost Love Score.
Yes. Are there any fun facts that you can tell us about the songs?
Oh, I've kind of shot my favorite one is the one about the songs that they hate. Always interesting. I mean, Marco, for example, doesn't really like Sacrament of Wilderness. Yuka didn't like For the Heart I Once Had. Again, it sounds so pessimistic, right? But I just find it so refreshing sometimes to hear them say, I don't really like that song. I kind of wish I hadn't done that. Of course, as well, Kiki, you touched on the Eurovision. So their song Sleepwalker. I am a massive Eurovision fan. Like, I absolutely adore it. Lord of the Lost were absolutely robbed this year, Germany. But Nightwish kind of coming into Eurovision and my worlds colliding was absolutely incredible. So that was always quite an interesting one. And without wanting to kind of make things a little bit gloomier, I think one of the disappointing things I found was the misogyny that the band had to deal with, especially during the earlier years. I think I was a lot younger then, and also I'm male. I get a lot of privilege for being cis male that I maybe didn't recognize. But one thing that really stuck with me and kind of disturbs me somewhat is I found a really old interview. I think it was around Wishmaster era with Tarja, and the whole interview was about sex. Like, that was it. They kind of got a woman from metal. It was like the last page of the magazine, and they would ask them really gross questions, like about sexual fantasies. And in one way, it's like, that is so disgusting to read and discover that was the norm. And in another way, it kind of gives you this relief that thank goodness we've moved past that now and we're not at the point. We still have a long way to go, but it's so disturbing to find that those things existed. So yeah, sorry. I think you asked for a fun fact, and I gave you a very depressing one. Sorry, Pia.
I have a fun fact.
Oh yes, go for a fun fact. Hit me.
When you listen to the lyrics of Nemo, there they say, "My flower withered between the pages 2 and 3." And if you take the Century Child CD and look at the second and third page of the booklet, there you have a withered flower.
Pia, you should have written this book, not me. That is a good fact.
You could have given some side notes, maybe.
That is brilliant. Oh, and I love the artwork for Century Child. It's so beautiful. My favorite artwork they've ever done. So I'm going to go look at that booklet afterwards.
Yuka calls it the big-handed girl at the waterfall album.
Yeah, she does. And ever since he said that, it's all I can see, her huge hands.
Yes. From all the songs, what's your favorite Nightwish song? Or does that change?
It does change. It's a very mean question, Pia. It's a good job I like you. My favorite song, it is genuinely really hard. I will say personally, Eva is a really special song for me. So my mum...
I like the demo version that Marco sang.
Oh, with Marco. Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's interesting that era because we got to see so many demos with Marco singing.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. But yeah, Eva for me, it was a song that my mum loved, and sadly she passed away when I was quite young. But they played it at her funeral, so it always reminds me of her. I have the lyric tattooed on my arm, "One More Daring Dream," so of course I have to mention that one. But also simply because it was, even if I didn't like it, it was my gateway, and She Is My Sin. And all these years later, it's one of my favorites now. And I
That's
still listen
cool.
to it and giggle and think, oh, you are so immature. Like, why were you scared of this?
Because that's my favorite song
Oh.
also.
Hey, nice, nice. We're in sync. Yeah, it's a great song. I mean, what a way to open an album. Like, just so in your face.
Yeah, and the operatic, so the peaks of the vocal range are pretty high. I love that a lot.
Yes, yes. I mean, I can't sing it, but you're much better prepared for than me.
Kiki, what's your favorite Nightwish song?
It also varies. I have maybe a few favorites from every album,
Yeah.
which I don't have them on my mind right now. But I do like Alpenglow a lot, which you just mentioned a bit before. And I would never, or I rather never really looked into the lyrics that deeply. So that was actually my fun fact from this episode. That was really nice. I like the death positivity in their newer work, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm glad I could teach you something. We made this 44 minutes worthwhile.
Hell yeah.
Simon, did you also pay attention to their videos?
Yes, yeah. So all of the videos are mentioned in the book as well. I think it's fun to revisit the old ones. I remember they really hated the video for Sacrament of Wilderness. And when I watched it, it's not really that bad. It's just a bit boring. It's really just them performing. And Tarja had that strange perm that she had, the ocean-born years of, it was not a great style era for Tarja, but
Don't
other than that.
talk to Kiki about her style, please.
That's the trigger for my hot take.
Oh, really?
I think Tarja should hire a better stylist. And yeah, I absolutely hate her outfits, most of her outfits. And well, I mean, it was the 90s, so I guess the perm was kind of justified.
I think, yes, yeah. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
But yeah, and I mean, not to compare, but there are, I don't know, outfit selection is not her strong suit. And yeah, I don't know if she does it alone or if she has someone, but there's a lot of potential over there.
I've never really thought about this style, but I think for me, for example, I get a little bit bored by Floor's style. When she unleashes a new outfit and it looks to me pretty similar to her last one. I know she's got this like Valkyrie style, but for me, not.
The thing with Floor is she is tall as hell, and she is like strong as well. I think we have interviewed her stylist, at least if she's still working with Ingeborg. Ingeborg styled Simone from Epica as well. A lot of her.
I do like a lot of Simone's outfit.
All of Epica's outfits, actually, for a lot of years. I don't know if they are still working together, but she styled Floor as well. And what I liked from Ingeborg, she also did my wedding dress, actually.
Oh my God, Kiki, that's amazing.
Yeah. And what I like the most about Ingeborg's work is that it's very practical. The band's outfits can be worn in different ways, and one hook here and one button here, and you unhook something else and you have a completely different outfit, or you put something else and it looks also completely different, or they're reversible, or they you have a dress with a long train and it can be hooked in the back so that you have a shorter skirt, and all of those things that to have 5 different outfits with 3 pieces of clothing,
that is pretty cool.
It's incredibly time and resource saving for everybody, and they look incredible as well. So Floor's outfits, I do think sometimes they are, maybe I'm looking at the cover of your book now, and that is a little too on the steampunk side.
Oh, yeah, steampunk's a good descriptor.
Yeah, but I don't know if it fits the concept of the album. I'm big on those kinds of things, like bands at a certain level of professionalism, when they go on stage with black jeans and a t-shirt from other bands. Gah!
Not for these headlining sets, right? At least make some effort.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
much production value that you can do with low budget on yourself. You can adapt your clothes a little bit yourself, or I don't know, combine things. Hey, at least I don't know, wear a nice suit on stage. Right?
Well, I
Okay,
was gonna say,
maybe not for specific genres, but Eminence did it quite well. But yeah, that's my thing. I really like when they are color coordinated and when they also have something from the album in there that you can also recognize, because in the end, it's all also marketing and branding and things that will stay in the audience's memories for a long time. So to put a little more effort into it, if you're a band on a budget and you don't have the money for big screens and fireworks and all of that stuff, at least invest a little bit in the things that you wear on stage so that those stay in people's memories. And when you have reached a certain level of professionalism, then invest in those things too and get a good stylist.
That is a really good. Honestly, I'm fascinated. I've never really thought about the style. I think we should collaborate on my next book, The Fashion of Nightwish, Kiki.
Oh,
are you down for that?
Please.
Let's do this.
Thomas had a doll of Jack Sparrow on his keyboard for a long time because people said that he looks like Jack Sparrow.
Yes, he did. That is, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about it. And then he was always wearing the top hat for a time as well. Imaginarium, I think, wasn't it? Yes, yeah.
That's a nice detail. See, you remember.
I do remember.
Point
There
made.
you go. It does. It does say. Well, after you said what you said about Inga being the Epica stylist, I do remember Epica always looked great because for a while when I saw them, they would have almost like a uniform, right, with the Epica logo on the guys, which always matched with Simona. And I love that. I bet like you, I love cohesion.
Yes.
But we were talking about videos, and we have to talk about the first Sleeping Sun video.
Do we have to?
If you
The
don't know that
bathtub.
one out there, please watch it. It's so funny. It's just Aya performing with a bath tube.
Yes. I mean, why not? I mean,
And, I think purple hair.
it was very strange. And also the Carpenter, the first one, like it's so funny because the graphics behind them, of course it was a different time, but it looks like PlayStation 1 kind of graphics, just a really fast sunset behind. It's really funny. Yeah, but they've definitely got better. I mean, Kiki, you mentioned earlier about Noise, their last music video, and thankfully the budget and the
Isn't there also a
concepts have got
bathtub
better.
there?
Say again, sorry.
Isn't there also a bathtub in there in that video?
Is there?
That would be
There
so funny.
is.
Right.
Oh my god, we've come full circle. Yeah, it's well remembered. Yeah, I love that. But they worked on that with Stoba Harju, who also directed the Nightwish movie for Imaginarium, and he has a really great eye. He said that he would not do another music video for them, but then he saw the treatment for Noise and was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So even he loved it.
But the lowlight is End of All Hope.
Oh my goodness, that deserves so much more, right?
Yeah, they just took some live footage and it is not even synchron. And then they took some scenes from a vampire movie and they put that together in a very weird way. It looks like they
No.
had some money left from the Bless the Child video, maybe,
Yeah.
and they just used it for that one.
And then, of course, Wish I Had an Angel their video was directed by, excuse my pronunciation, Uwe Boll, the
Uwe Boll.
German director. Yeah, which was kind of nice until I saw it. No,
They
it's
also
not
put
too
this-
bad. Not too bad.
They put the movie snippets also in the video. right?
Yes, Alone in the Dark. Yes, I think one of the most critically panned films of the year. My friend also has a podcast about bad movies. Like he loves bad movies, and he said, I really need to do some research into if they have Nightwish in the soundtrack, does it mean the movie's probably going to be bad? Because all of the films I mentioned, he's like, yeah, that's a bad movie. Yeah, that's a bad movie. So maybe they're
no, that's so
unlucky.
sad.
Yeah, if they're on the soundtrack.
Oh no. That's horrible.
See, there we have a fun fact.
Another fun fact, a potential one. We'll do some research.
Talking about podcasts, you are also a podcaster.
I am, yes. Not as professional as you guys with this system we got going, but yes, I have a Nightwish podcast. You're starting to notice a theme, everything in my life. Yeah, so my podcast does pretty much what the book did before I wrote the book. So every episode we talk about a different song. And one of the fun things is we've been able to have some guests from the metal world. So Vibeke Sten from Extrastania. I couldn't believe that I got to speak to the singer from Tristania. That was a dream. But also, I know you also interviewed her recently. I heard Omb from Zandria. And what an amazing person. And she is the biggest Nightwish fan. Like she said to me, she said, "Do you want me to co-host the podcast with you?" I said, "Yes, anytime." So yeah, maybe one day if Zandria have a break, I can get her on the podcast to be my co-host.
Did the band react to your book?
They have not. So it is unofficial in a sense because it is through a publisher, but it's not like the band didn't sign off on anything. So I hope that one day we'll be able to get the message out to them. Maybe they'll be terrified of me. They're like, this guy knows too much. Like I don't want to speak to him.
I can feel you. I tend to get obsessive with the bands that I like a lot also.
Yes, same. But I have sent a book, actually. I've sent a book to Plamen Dimov, who does the Nightwish experience in Kitty. So asked him to maybe give to Thomas if he has the chance. But I think Nightwish are quite difficult because they don't use social media. They're not very present online. So it's kind of harder, I find, to get through to them. But for me, the book was really a passion project. And I'm so happy that fans are enjoying it. But if it got to the band, that would just be an added bonus, really. So hopefully, maybe one day.
And people out there, when this episode will be published, it'll be almost Christmas. So if you're looking for a great Christmas present for a Nightwish fan, maybe we have an idea for you.
Pia, I need you in my marketing team. That is fantastic segue. Yes, absolutely. And they have so many wintry songs, so you can listen to Taika Talvi or Walking in the Air whilst you're reading it. Yeah, it can be the best Christmas you've ever had.
Absolutely. The link will be in the description. And it's now available worldwide, right?
It is, yes, absolutely. So please buy it.
Awesome. So I think that's it. Do you have anything that you want to say to our audience, Simon?
I just want to say I'm one of you guys. I love the Bleeding Metal podcast. I want to say a thank you, Pia and Kiki, for being such a welcoming space for queer and diverse people. The metal scene, we love it, but it can also sometimes be a little bit straight and white. And it's really wonderful to know that there are people out there that appreciate our voices and support us. So thank you both so much and for having me as a guest. And I look forward to listening to your Nightwish discography.
It was great fun talking to you.
That is very good feedback, Simon. And and it's also fun that you mentioned that because we want to amplify LGBTQIA voices from all ethnicities and from all over the world. And we have an episode in the pipeline about kind of exactly that topic. But we also did touch on that subject in a recent episode from the Tuska Festival, from the Tuska Forum by Bleeding Metal, where we talked to Lost Society singer Sami Albana. And that was a very cool interview as well. It's been out for a bit now.
And now that you mentioned the Tuska interviews, we also had Marco. You talked to Marco.
You did. I should have given you my book to give to him. Damn. Maybe next time.
We have to coordinate better, yes.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for talking to us, Simon, for reaching out, for wanting to come on the podcast to begin with. So thank you so much for your time. And everybody out there who's a Nightwish fan, you should and you will probably be interested in Nightwish On Track, every album, every song by Simon McMurdo. Thanks everyone for listening so far. And we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye.